It's Monday, September 22nd, 2025. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about fitness tech. So yeah, big weekend. Yesterday, Emily and I, we went upstate to hike and to see a remastered Porco Rosso in the theater at a fancy theater in Pleasantville. Just because we were up there anyway, like it was on our way home. Because there's some guy making a book about like Miyazaki's inspirations, and the book's pretty good. It has like, here's a shot from a Miyazaki film, here's a photo of the place that was the reference, and like that kind of thing. But I love Porco Rosso. It's one of my favorite animated films, but I hadn't seen it in a while, and I realized I'd only ever seen meh quality copies of that movie. So
I've seen the DVD, which is
seeing it on the big screen for the first time in high quality. I guess part of me forgot how fucking beautiful that thing is, in the sense that more so than even other Ghibli films, it has that type of scene where there's like a million people in the background of some crazy thing, and every one of them is animated individually, and if you zoom in, there's something going on everywhere. Like the whole scene is just bubbling with nonsense. That fight at the end, that movie's just one of my favorite movies. Also, considering what it's about, highly topical.
There's a lot of movies that are about that. I saw an opera with similar topic.
Yeah,
a Nazi punching opera. So we let's see. On Sunday, I went to go do the New York City Century was a ride that went away. It came back. There's no confirmation it'll come back again, but it came back this one time because some benefactor who really liked it passed away and their estate made it possible. So I wanted to, I figured, well, I guess I kind of have to do it, even though it's an inconvenient time. But I had opera tickets the same night. So it's like, wow.
Talk about a Scott kind of problem to have. I want to bike this Century in New York, but it's the same day as my opera tickets.
Right, but I had already done it several times before.
Yep.
The full 100, which are the other routes. I'm like, I'll just do 55 just to do this and then go home, right? And so I did, and of course, while doing so, by complete coincidence, of all the people, the millions of people in the city, right, and the over 1,000 people doing this ride of different lengths, right, I happened to be biking near someone familiar, and sure enough, it was an acquaintance that I had not seen or spoken to in quite a while.
And you mentioned that person, right. And yeah, I have not spoken to that person in quite a while. They are a good person, and it's funny in New York how that happens so often. Like, despite the city having how many millions of people in it and so much nonsense, you like run into people kind of often.
Right. It's like there's a lot of times where like you'll even be like, we were at the same concert as a person I knew, and you find out later, and like you didn't bump into each other, even though you were in the same building at the same time, because even in a situation like that, there's hundreds or thousands of people there. Well,
then there's that Yoko Kanno concert that was like, oh, this is fucking
Well, the town hall is a much smaller place. Yeah. You'll see if you're gonna see if someone's there, you're gonna see them unless they're in the upper level.
It was just like outside the theater, the gathering of people around us was like a collection of people, many of whom did not know each other, that spanned decades of our lives.
Yep. And so then we go to the opera, right? And so the weird thing happened. They start the opera, the lights go down, and then they played the national anthem. I've been to the opera a lot, and I've never had them play the national anthem at the start, so I don't know.
I don't think that is not a thing as far as I'm aware.
But here's the thing. So people seem to just like it wasn't like me. I was like what's going on, right? Because like they announced it or anything. They just started playing. A lot of other people, like I guess, stood up already. Like they were ahead of me, right? So they knew this was happening, and so I don't know if it was because it was an opera that was American and in English.
Okay, so I just found a Reddit thread from 3 years ago. What the fuck? Why did they play the national anthem before the SFB gala, which is a ballet thing?
All right. Okay, so it could have been because there was a gala that night. I've never been to, the
Reddit thread is all people saying, "What the fuck? That's weird. That's never happened to me. What was going on? Everyone's acting like you."
All right, and it could have been because this was the start of the season, right? I've never gone to the first opera of the season. And so that also could have been the reason and why other people might have known if they're, frequent opera, because I'm going like once a season on some random one, right? This is the first one. So that could have been that was why. Anyway, so that was a little weird. But there was something about it where the orchestra was playing it, but everyone was singing, and there's some.
That always, I will admit, that always creeps me out when that happens.
It was a little bit creepy, and also a little bit not creepy because you could hear, it's like, the opera company is a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? And only some of those people are in this particular opera, and you could hear opera people out in the crowd. Right? So there was,
okay, that adds a dimension because for anyone who's not...
It was like a chorus of like this whole opera house is singing in the reverse direction.
Which, that adds a dimension that actually is not political in that if you're not like familiar with music out there, the listener, the American national anthem is like preternaturally difficult to sing, even if you were a professional singer, for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a technical challenge.
It didn't sound like, if you go to a Canadian hockey game and they're all singing, right?
Yeah.
It sounded, it had a chorus sound to it. It was like a chorus with some old people mixed in.
But also, if it is a Nazi punching opera, then it might make sense that the patriotic feelings expressed are on the right side of history in this specific instance. So
speaking of that, so the general manager of the opera comes out, right? And he's basically like, the guy who runs the show, and he wrote this thing in the playbill, right? Mm-hmm. And he's basically like, he's like the thing written in the playbill obviously is older, right? Where he's like, oh yeah, he's like, some global crisis merit measures that go beyond cultural exchange, right? Up until the start of Russia's brutal invasion, we had a cultural exchange program with them, but now we don't, right? They're a murderous regime, right? But then he basically goes on to say later, although Russia's lethal invasion was a red line, I've always believed in the value of cultural exchange, regardless of ideological or political differences. That's why the Met is happy to announce its cultural exchange agreement with Saudi Arabia. Well, for 5 years, beginning in 2028, we'll send our company to Riyadh's new opera house each winter during our break.
So the opera has joined the WWE.
Right. It's sort of like that, right? And then, so this guy comes out on stage after I had already read that in the play. That's the only thing I read in the playbill, because most of it is just credits. And I didn't need to read the plot summary for this one. And so he comes out and he's basically like, we stand for freedom of artistic expression, right? And everyone's like, woo, 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 right? They're all cheering.
Like
and I'm like, yeah, slow clap, whatever, right? You're just platitudes, okay.
Yep.
Like,
say something specific. If you want me to clap, say something specific.
I don't disagree with you, but thanks for the platitude, Saudi Arabia guy. Right? And then he's like, something, announce, right? And before he finished the announcement, I forget what his exact words were, but I could already tell who he was introducing, which was Chuck Schumer. Right? It was easy to tell halfway through his talking who he was talking about. And then he said, I was basically 90% sure, and then the literal next word out of his mouth was senator, and I was 100% sure. Right? And so Chuck Schumer came out, and he happened to come out on the left side of the stage, and we were sitting pretty far to the left, so I was pretty close he definitely heard my boo. He didn't react. He didn't react. He just said what his prepared thing he was there to say. There were people cheering. There were other people booing too. There was definitely a gaggle way behind me, and also one dude off to my left who yelled also.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, he's a mixed bag.
I had known I could have prepared better booing.
Oh yeah, if I can prepare a boo in advance, it can be quite poignant, specific.
I could have thought of he was only there for like a minute, and I had to think of what to boo.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's a mixed bag. He's good on some things, he's bad on other things.
Yeah, but he was coming out there, and he's like, he wasn't saying anything wrong, right? He was just like, this is so terrible, right? And I'm like, do something about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're a senator.
I feel like that might have been the thing to yell instead of boo. But in the moment, it's hard.
I was like, boo, do something about it.
Yeah.
I could have also, yeah, like I could have called him a coward, or I could have yelled to endorse Zoran, or something,
Yeah.
right? But I only had like 1 minute. But anyway, so that was unexpected. And then we saw the opera, which was based on, they commissioned this opera, right? Based on a favorite book, Kavalier and Clay, GeekNights book club selection.
I should link to that again. It's been a while. I should reread that at some point.
Yeah, maybe I should also, now having seen an opera based on it. So about this opera, all right, a Nazi punching opera, of course, based on the book. I was worried seeing an opera in English. I'm trying to cover all the languages. I've already seen Italian.
Opera in English is usually fine, but I saw that hockey opera when Emily and I were in Toronto years ago.
I don't know what that is.
It's an opera about it was an opera about hockey.
Figured that out. Yeah,
but it was in English, but in the traditional way. So there were lyrics like, "I'm going to kill him, that fucking guy." Like
it was a little bit of that.
It was a little bit of that, which that's how opera
but
is.
Actually, yeah, there was a little bit of that. But the thing is, if you know, I don't know, Italian or German, and you go to the opera,
it's like that.
There's a lot of that. It's the same thing.
It's like when you listen to when we first listened to J-pop, we're like, "What inspiring music!" And then we read what the lyrics were. Like, "Oh, it's just regular pop."
Right.
But we don't
so,
understand.
Think about really famous opera, or something like Figaro. Right? Just saying Figaro over and over again. Imagine someone being like, Joe Schmo, Joe Schmo, Joe Schmo. Right? It's all so stupid. It's literally, but actually, being in English wasn't too bad, and they still had the subtitles, which is also useful, even though I needed them much less. And they obviously much of the book was removed because there's no way they would fit all this giant book into the one opera, but they kept what they needed to keep. And actually, it was a lot. I went to see it because of what it was, right? But my expectation wasn't actually that high, but it exceeded my expectation. I was like, oh, look at that. That's probably, a better adaptation than like a Hollywood movie would likely do. Right? So, not bad.
Yeah.
If you want to go see it,
it runs through October 11th.
There's going to be a few more performances you can go see. Who knows if it'll ever come back? Because they commissioned it for this season, and I don't know, appropriately. And that's that.
Yeah. All right, and we saw a Mets game. Haven't seen baseball in a while. If I talk about that on a Tuesday.
That was Friday.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend.
That was before. We got a whole show's gonna be opening bit here.
Yeah. So all right, there is some news, and both news are related to the same thing. So I guess you can start with your half.
Yeah. So the TikTok deal, right? So I don't. I read about it and then I forgot most of the details that I read way back when it was more of a front news, more of a headline news about the TikTok deal. The law passed that says TikTok can't operate in the U.S. unless it sells, right? That's a passed law. That's a law of the United States. But it gives the president some kind of power to delay it. I thought it was only one-time delay, but basically he just keeps delaying it and no one's doing anything about that. And I guess only someone would have to go to court and who has grounds to go to court and say the president can't delay this again. They have to sell or shut down right now and then win. And then right. But anyway, it keeps delaying. And they're delaying and also trying to work out a deal to sell TikTok or do something so that TikTok stays online, but also is controlled by evil people in the U.S. instead of by China.
Yep. I mean, this edges into regulatory capture. There are, let's just say, myriad ethical concerns for everything about this deal. Independent of the myriad ethical concerns about TikTok itself, irrespective of the national interest of China in TikTok. Every direction you go, there's bad stuff going on here.
There's all the obvious things that people are already thinking that we don't even really need to discuss. Like, oh yes, the evil regime is going to capture the media platform and use it for propaganda and control the algorithm, all the obvious shit, right? The thing that is, I think, more concerning, actually, in a lot of ways than that very concerning thing that's obvious, right? Is that you know, you think about a government that just nationalizes companies, and we like that on the left, actually.
Yeah.
Right. In a lot of ways.
Well, nationalize good, not nationalize corrupt, not nationalize like it's an 18xx game.
Right. But this case is something I'd never like. Is there an example of this in history that someone can point to? Because I can't think of one where a country steals and nationalizes another country's company, right? They made a law that's like, imagine if like, I don't know, France.
Well, nationalizes
right?
or...
Imagine if France was like, Ford, you can't sell cars here unless you're owned by France. And they do some shenanigans and suddenly the government of France owns Ford Motor Corporation.
So,
right?
But isn't it, this is complicated because it's actually...
And like some French rich people's money is used to like force this to happen and the U.S. can't do anything about it. It's like, shouldn't China be able to do something about this?
Well, they could go to the UN, but I mean...
China tried to be like, we own Apple now with our, anyone who has factories in China, becomes, Apple is now a Chinese company, right? The U.S. would put a stop to that one way or another.
So you're not going to like the examples I can point at that are the closest to this, but before I get to that, it looks like the actual deal here is that American investors, and I say that with all the strain and asterisks I'm about to get into, will own the majority of it. That it's not going to be it's not going to be operated by the United States. It's going to be operated by this collection of American oligarch investors. So it's even worse than nationalization capture.
The current stockholders are being forced to sell. Right? It's like they don't have this option to like not sell.
Well, they
somehow,
do.
Right?
If they chose not to sell, then the U.S. would just not let them offer their product in the United States.
But I don't think they would. They've already been putting it off so many times. I think
maybe what you're saying is that the government of China should have called their bluff and said, fucking do it.
That's what they should have done.
Or potentially what could be happening here, and I'm being very circumspect.
Couldn't China do the same thing and say, no Apple devices may be manufactured or sold in China effective immediately unless you sell 51% of Apple shares to rich people in China?
Yes, that kind of tit for tat could happen.
Yeah.
This is... I'm not going to say unprecedented, but this kind of thing has happened in history. Examples, I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't know them off the top of my head. If you look at the filibuster era, aka the Banana Republic Wars and everything around that, there was a long history of the United States using military and economic policy and gunboat diplomacy to basically force things owned by other governments to become privatized and or become U.S. interests. But the thing this is most analogous to is what happened to a number of industries in Germany during the Weimar as the Nazis took over. They would basically arrange by various means the seizure of companies and assets, and then instead of even just running them nationally, they would basically hand them to someone as a form of patronage to get them in line with the regime. That is also how Russia became what it is today.
They didn't steal a foreign company.
So Russia
did that to German companies.
Russia did this with foreign companies after the fall of the Soviet Union because many of the things that Russia took when the Soviet Union was dissolved were actually owned by the constituent members of the Soviet Union, like Ukraine or Georgia, etc. And then they just packaged it up and handed it to oligarchs. So they're not all identical situations, and I have not done enough research to point out what are the closest situations, but those three areas...
I have not seen a situation like this where a country forces people in another country to give their property, to sell their property to people in... It's like you're basically eminent domaining another country's stuff.
Arguably, but again, I'd have to do some more like detailed research to refine this a little bit. Both the English and the Dutch East India companies, like the John Company, did exactly that as well.
Wasn't that more conquering though?
Well,
colonizing, as opposed to
well, to remind you of a book we've both read, Use of Weapons. I asked you the question: what is a weapon?
I didn't read Use of Weapons, but okay.
You should read Use of Weapons because that book is
Sure.
about the fundamental question: what is a weapon? It is
Anyway,
that book. I have been.
That is the concerning part of this news story. That if you read news articles, they will not mention that point. They're going to be talking about the normal parts of the.
I am weirdly
evil Larry Ellison and evil what's his face Fox News guy, right? Are going to run TikTok and make the algorithm turn people into Nazis. That's that's what the news is going to be talking about.
Well, speaking of which, my news, which I'll link to, is exactly that because the U.S. has. It's not even just obviously that's going to happen. I'm going to quote a White House official said on Monday today they are going to redo TikTok's algorithm kind of directly.
Yeah, I mean,
So they're not. It's not even like, ooh, they're going to use it to do regime propaganda. They are literally saying we're going to use this to do regime propaganda.
Listen. For us, this is no surprise, right? We always knew that they didn't really believe in.
Oh, the only
free
surprise
speech,
is that
right?
they're saying it out loud to that extent because they didn't need to say anything.
I'm not surprised by that. I'm not.
Well, because they're
surprised by that at all.
dumb. That's it.
Right. The only thing that I want to see that I haven't seen, right, is I want to see all the people, the right-wing people who were the kinds that were saying free speech, cancel culture,
I
blah,
think you're
blah,
not going to
blah.
see the thing you want to see.
No. They're obviously not going to realize, oops, my bad, right? They're none of... actually, funny enough, though, Ted Cruz did say that.
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
A little, not really. The headline seems like he said that a lot. He only said it like a little
Well,
bit.
Tucker fucking Carlson said something that was real close to, I think he might be doing a fascism recently.
Yeah.
All right,
But
buddy,
anyway.
you're starting to figure it out, eh?
Right. But I do want what I haven't seen that I kind of want to see actually is, the person who is saying free speech, cancel culture, blah, blah, blah before, right? And I want to see the excuse they're making now.
So
I know they're making an excuse and they're not going to change their mind and they're still a piece of shit and right? I just want to see that person and it's just one. I know there's something stupid coming out of their mouth that's obviously makes no sense and is hypocritical and whatever. I'm curious exactly what it is because I haven't gone to any place where I'm going to see that message and I'm not going to.
We've seen a little bit of that already happen, and all evidence shows that the current trend among basically anyone like the people you describe is to ignore whatever they said before and just say a different thing. And if confronted, they'll say they never said that. And if you bring receipts, they'll ignore you.
So it's like on the Daily Show where they show the clip of someone before and then someone now.
Yep, and they just don't respond, or they just don't engage, and they just continue to lie and say, "I've always believed this. We were always at war with Oceania." It's just full on. It's
what about
brazen.
cancel culture? Why are you canceling? I thought you hated cancel culture. Why are you canceling?
They'll just say something vague like this is about freedom from the tyranny of and they'll just make up some crap. But
you were talking about censorship before, but now the government is actually doing the censoring, which actually, I forget the number, XKCD.
No, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say the government's not censoring anything.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
So we actually have some more specific examples, and I don't want to derail. We're going to get to the rest of the show. But so there's another thing going on right now. I'm not going to make it my news, but the U.S. government's probably going to shut down. But it's an inverted. Good, but it's an inverted situation from before. This time, the Republicans are saying we want a clean spending bill just to keep things operating, and the Democrats are saying no. You got to protect Obamacare and do a couple other things, or we're going to let it shut down. That is the inverse of what's happened before, and the Republicans
should have been doing this for the past 20 years.
They are out loud in the House saying, word for word, the talking points the Democrats used when they fought for clean spending bills. They are just blatantly using the other side's arguments with no reflection, no. It's so brazen. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's not. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Nah, really doesn't.
That's not.
The real moral here is really you should not be using
the more
TikTok.
Surprising thing is that the Democrats will shut down the government. They actually doing something good. That's the surprising part.
Well, you know what? Part of what's going on there.
Why haven't you been doing this the whole time? They could have been doing this the whole time.
Yep. Well, some of them old and slow, didn't learn their lesson. Some of them,
they could have been like, they could have been like, hey,
well, no, let's go way back. They could have fucking sent
government.
Nixon to prison.
Yeah, they could have done that too.
Should have sent Nixon to prison. That was the domino. But some of them that we elected, like AOC, immediately started doing the maximum day one when they got in.
Yep,
So
of course.
But what's happening now, and this isn't just me, I'm basing this on a lot of reading. The Democrats that are starting to do more and take real actions are the ones who are getting a lot of phone calls and emails from their constituents that are telling them to do crazy things. And not because they're going to do, if you write like your governor and be like, I want my state to secede and form an alliance with Canada, like they're not going to do that. But
obviously
saying you want that is telling them, all right, based on our data, 1% of the people who vote for us would accept anything up to a civil war. 5% of the people who would vote for us want us to stop paying federal tax. Like, they're basically getting this gauge of what percentage of the people I need to get reelected want X level of crazy, and they're going to calibrate their level of aggression at around 55% of the electorate that they can see. So that's why writing them and calling them matters a lot, because they don't respond by doing the thing you want. They respond by feeling safer doing more risky things.
Well, at least, Democrats do, because their philosophy is to do what their constituents ask, right? Whereas, Republicans, their philosophy is do what we want, what our, well, Democrats also do what their donors want and balance it against what their constituents want.
Republicans just do whatever they want.
Republicans just follow, do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, well, everything I said only applies to Democrats. If you're represented by a Republican, there's nothing you can do but try to get them out of office in the next election.
Right. But, what we really need is what we've always needed is the combination of both. We need somebody who is a decent human being who wants to do good things and then just has the courage to do them regardless of whether their constituents say they want to or not. And if you lose the next election because it doesn't work, so be it. Who cares? Someone else will, oh no, I have to go get a different job. Big deal. Who gives a shit, right? I did what I believed in. Or hopefully the policies that you're putting forth, because you're a decent human being and you're ignoring your constituents for the most part, not entirely, obviously, right? You put forth evidence-based policies that work and make people's lives better. And therefore, even if they initially opposed you, they now support you because you made their lives better. Example, the most recent obvious example is the congestion pricing in New York City. Everyone was against it, but the evidence said that it would work. And they had the political courage to put it forth and make it happen, even though they eased back on it a bit for no reason. They didn't have to do that. But even in its weakened form, oh, look, it turns out it did work. The evidence didn't lie. Science is correct. Experts are correct. Information is real when it's factual.
Well,
and because it worked, people now support it much more than they did before it went into practice and became a real thing. And so you have to have the courage to do things and just don't be an evil person like Republicans are. And that's what we need.
I feel like I should
get a copy of the video I just watched in that Harvard course I'm taking on public policy, because the unit I just did yesterday has a whole section that basically says, for most of modern American history, the Democrats have always had sound policies that are highly effective, even if they're unpopular. And Republicans have basically always been wrong on any major policy. And
exactly.
This is Harvard professors saying this in a class with evidence.
Correct.
And they point to all these policies. And then it gets into why that is different now. And a thing I didn't consider is not just all the things you and I know, but it's the fact that complex policies often have diffuse benefits, but concentrated costs. So everybody benefits a little, so nobody fights that much for them, but the people who have to pay will fight them a lot and tend to have deep pockets. So it's very hard to ever do anything like that. The policies that tend to get through have diffuse costs and concentrated benefits. So now you have a small group of people who will fight for those things, and et cetera. That's a whole topic for the. I'll see if I can get a copy of this.
That's a good time. That's a good thing.
I'm going to get a copy of this lecture and share it with our friends, because it's not long and it was.
I like that. It's the thinking that sounds correct.
Yep. But anyway. Things of the day. So this just dropped. Like, I didn't know this was coming. I saw it in my YouTube recommendations for a few days. And then finally I hovered over it and I was like, wait, this is 26 minutes long? So Glitch, which is a new animation studio, it's indie animation out of Australia. They just made a full-length 26-minute pilot episode of an animated science fiction show that they intend to release in some fashion. It's just free on YouTube. It was released like a few days ago. So I watched it, and you know what? It's pretty great. And yeah, this is actually super cool. If you like cyberpunk dystopia on a planet that's basically colonized by Disney and an AI inside of a Disney bot escapes and helps people, like this is your show.
Well, the title of the show is
The Knights of Guinevere.
It doesn't sound like that's what it would be at all.
Yeah, this gets weird. It has some Mobius adjacent elements. It has some general French sci-fi comic adjacent elements. There's a lot going on here.
Mobius, okay.
Yeah, it's
Mobius
weird.
Strip.
No, not now. It is
Mobius comic strip.
It's weirder than I thought it was going to be. It's the kind of weird sci-fi I actually like a lot that I don't see that often.
All right. No, okay.
I was surprised. So yeah, I recommend watching it.
Maybe I will. All right. So if you want to run software meant for old PCs on your new PC because you don't have a computer with like a 486 just lying around, there's a lot of options out there. Most people just use DOSBox because 9 out of 10 times you can be playing a DOS game, right? There are, however, DOSBox only does DOS. What if you want to do other things with an x86 computer? You might have to use something like Box, BOCHS, or there are some other x86 emulators out there. But this one, which is a few years old, but just like, a month ago or so, had its 5.0 release, which is like a significant upgrade. This one, called 86 Box, is the most advanced, most user-friendly, most fanciest. I'm not sure about the accuracy, but they say this accuracy. But it's really impressive. If there's something more impressive out there in this category, I don't know about it. And like, you can run OS2 on this, you could run BOS on this thing, right? It's really easy to manage. Like, with its GUI, you can manage all sorts of different, computers over there. Pretty much everything up to the Pentium and as far back as like obscure like IBM PS2 shit. Yeah. Right? It's like a huge range of old PCs, x86 CPUs that you probably don't have access to and don't want to put in your house because they take up too much room. And you can do this one free piece of software. You can do all that, and that's pretty great. Good job. It's like you think, oh, who cares about a new piece of software that does something that we already have plenty of x86 emulators? It's like there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, well, the big key for me is making the experience easier for people to use, because like you doing the way we both know how to do it, you got to have some expert knowledge that not everyone's going to have, and that's a barrier to entry. Anything that makes it easier and more streamlined and makes it just work is going to open up technology to more people, full stop. This is full-on accessibility. In the meta moment, I got to update the website. The GeekNights Book Club book is The Running Man by Richard Bachman, who you may know as Stephen King. We're going to do the episode right after I get back from Germany and Japan, just because we're going to have to skip some episodes because I'm going to Germany and Japan for 2 weeks, like next week. TBD if we even do an episode on Wednesday, because I'm also engaged in multiple large personal transactions and things. So
That means no.
But yeah, let's just say this is the only show this week because I got to get a bunch of shit done and then fly to Germany on like
Rim's
Saturday.
Gone, which means the next Geek Nights will probably be Monday the 6th. Are you really?
No, I'm going to be in Tokyo the 6th through the 10th, and then I'm flying home.
Oh, so you got 2 weeks of no Geek Nights.
On the 13th, I'll be back in the U.S. doing Geek Nights like normal. And we're going to Apple pick on the 12th.
Apple picking on the 12th.
Yeah, I land on the 11th, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. 11th.
Remember,
12th,
I don't get 13th. So the listener,
so the next Geek Nights will be on Tuesday, the 14th of October.
Yeah, we'll review. I don't know.
The day after I go. The day after Indigenous Peoples Day, on which I will be going to see Tron Ares at the Ultra IMAX.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Running Man is, it was written when we were born. It's set in 2025. It's about the same thing that everything's about. And we'll do the episode then, and you should read it. It's not long. You can find used copies of The Running Man for like $0. There's a copy in like every library. It's
I got it from I read it from the library, $0.
Yep. It's
So yeah, on October 16th, we will talk about The Running Man.
Yep. And I expect then we will also, I think we should review the movie with the Arnold, and then we can review the new Running Man movie that's coming out or came out. So 3 Runnings Men.
I didn't know that there was the new one.
There's a new one. I learned about that when I was preparing to make the post, and then I got distracted.
Uh-oh. I'll have to go
Also,
check that out.
we will be live at PAX Unplugged in November with at least 2 events, probably 2 events. I can announce one of them on, what day is this? We are going to be doing on November 22nd, whichever day that is at PAX, at 1:30 p.m. in the Crab God Theater. A brand new talk, Messing Up the Rules. There's a lot to say about fucking up the rules, and I made it a slightly gentler title just because sensibilities. But the panel will be flagged 13 plus since PAX has updated the rules a little bit. And if you will use the word fuck as an exclamation, you have to flag it as 13 plus. And as much as I can try to avoid that, it's too deep in my blood at this point. I've been living in Queens too long.
Yep. All right. I want to do, since we're not going to do any shows for a while, and we're not going to do a Wednesday show. I don't know when the last time we did a Wednesday show is. Just one meta item for you. There is a 4K remaster of the S tier animated film Perfect Blue that will be in theaters October 3rd, and perhaps a week after that. Check your local theater schedule.
That is one of my favorite movies of all time in the thriller.
Maybe you can see it in Germany.
Maybe I can actually.
In Japanese with German subtitles.
Thing is, I know what happens in it, so I could just lay back and enjoy the ride. It's one of my favorite.
Maybe the German dub will be epic.
Right? It is one of my favorite psychological thriller movies, animated or not.
Yeah.
So otherwise, let's get into it. Fitness tech could mean a lot of things, and that's actually what we got to talk about first. Because on one hand, there is the technology to use to facilitate exercising, from weights to crazy machines to treadmills to bike trainers to whatever. Then there are the machines to facilitate statistics tracking and performance metrics of some kind. And then there are devices that are a little bit in between that facilitate the activity and may collect some data. I'm thinking things like bike computers, navigators, route mappers.
Even you mentioned a treadmill. A treadmill, you run on it, right? But it also is like it also has the tracking built into it.
Yep.
Right? It's doing both, things. I think there's another sort of really other category of device that, for example, if you do like say virtual golf, right, you could get like a golf swing analyzer that will like tell you how to make your golf swing better, right? It's not necessarily tracking data of your body like a Fitbit. It's almost like a virtual coach.
Oh, remember
right?
there was that Counter-Strike virtual coach that we tried and talk about on GeekNights.
Exactly.
And it made me better at Counter-Strike, like for real. The only thing I couldn't learn.
I didn't use it enough to make me get better at
I definitely got better at Counter-Strike.
I just used it for like a minute.
But then I kept failing the tests on the pattern spray. And then when I looked up what that actually is, I decided I don't like Counter-Strike anymore.
You don't say.
That part I actually hate the most.
But anyway, yeah, which category of fitness device are we going to discuss at Geek Nights today?
I think we should do the stats tracking because, one, that's what most people use the most. And two, it is the thing, like all these things, exercise is a thing you can do wrong. Like, you can't play a video game wrong unless you do it in some way that hurts yourself, really. You can argue trolling and griefing or whatever, but you can exercise wrong in a way that can harm you very directly. And
don't let that scare you away from exercising, right? Because like exercising a little wrong, it's like the benefits of exercise are immense.
Oh, 100%.
Like You cannot like I've heard doctors and other people, medical professionals be like, exercise is basically the strongest medicine, like better than anything in the whole pharmacy.
Even just walking around more than you normally do is like objectively good for you.
Right. So don't be like, oh, because I might hurt myself, I'm going to continue to be sedentary and play video games.
But I'm talking more like if you've never lifted weights before.
You shouldn't play video games on the couch. That's also very important.
But like if you've never worked out before, don't try to like deadlift 100 pounds with your neck.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Don't lift with your knee, lift with your neck and your knees and your back all at the same time.
Right.
But
now, if
stats
you just
tracking
exercise
can be used wrong. That's the point I was getting to in that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of nerds, and I've fallen for this in the past. We all fall for it. You start to focus on the stats instead of the thing you're tracking the stats about. And exercise is a place where it is very easy to fall into that trap, even if you see the trap coming.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
it's good. That's Goodhart's law, right? Any observed statistical regularity, something. Basically, as soon as you measure something, the target becomes when a measure becomes a target, it's no longer a good measure, right?
Yep.
Because it's like, oh, let's okay, we have the web and we want to track, views. And to see who's getting visited the most, right? And we're trying to measure which website is the most popular. And as soon as you're measuring that, it's like, well, how you're measuring it, everyone starts to fake it, right? To get that number to go up. And no longer tells you what you wanted to know, which is which website is the most popular. So you're checking, I don't know, your heart rate or something, and you want to see like, oh, am I the healthiest? I don't know, or like VO2 max or some number, right? And you end up, maybe you can maximize that number, but did it help you achieve your original? Did maximizing that number probably did not help you achieve your original goal that you were out to? It's a number that can inform you and help you, but you can't make it like your target.
And there's also a side pernicious problem of when people first start tracking stats like that, they'll get into this mode sometimes where if the stat tracking failed in some way, or like they don't have their watch with them and they could do a workout, they won't, because they feel like if they don't track the stat, it didn't count in some way. And that's a psychological pressure I have seen people fall for, and I have felt that pressure even if I have not bowed to it. Like, I don't track every run I do, and I'm a crazy runner who tracks a lot of stats, but sometimes I just walk outside and go for a run. Don't even think about it. I track maybe a third of my workouts.
I use the bike Strava way less than I used to.
I don't turn on the bike Strava unless I'm biking more than 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. Right. It's like, I used to be like every single bike, I'd be like, got to remember to start the thing, like commutes and stuff. Right. But now it's just, I don't commute anymore. But even so, it's like, that's not necessary. Right. And Strava is a great example because it's like, I'm out there biking to the joy of biking. And there's people out there who go out and bike and they're biking for Strava. Right? Strava is a game they're playing, and they're trying to like find segments and beat the times on those segments. And it's like, I guess that's a game you can play if you treat it's like a video game. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But if your original goal was the joy of cycling or whatever, or just to improve your health, it's like that might help you in some ways, but you're getting away from that original goal.
You'll know the moment because I can make up a moment to describe what it'll feel like. You're biking, you're enjoying your time, you're out in the woods, and you see a cool like rock off on the side of the trail, like a big crazy rock with a little path to it off on the side of the trail, and you really want to go check it out because like maybe there's a guy on top of it.
That rock 99% of the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But if you feel an instinct, if part of your brain says it'll mess up your average speed in Strava, you have to throttle that voice because that voice is going to make you unhappy.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about actual devices, right?
Yeah.
So most recently, I think the biggest thing that most people are using is some kind of heart rate monitor, right? They even just added it to the AirPods 3. I just have the kind that straps around It's a a cheapy one.
Yep.
right?
I used to use a Fitbit. Now I just have an iWatch, so an Apple Watch. So I just use that. It's
The Apple
good
Watch
enough.
one is not very. I mean, it's fine for just during your day, but if you're like, if I'm going to bike somewhere for reals, I got to use the strappy one. Right?
Yeah, I usually
The
don't
Apple
track
Watch
my
one
heart
is
rate
not
on
the
long. So on
greatest.
long bike rides, I just use Strava on my phone because I'm just tracking like the stat, and I only track my heart rate when I'm doing runs because that's where I'm using that heart rate data for specific purposes in my training, so I need it for that. I don't need it from all my other activities, so I use the lower resistance path of just hit go on my phone and not think about it.
Yep. So what I use it for is actually what you're supposed, at least what I've heard, right, is that there's supposed to be these heart rate zones, right, which they simplify into colors and they vary like based on your personal body, right? But you're supposed to figure out what your zones are, and like to get a good exercise, you're supposed to like stay in I guess depending on how much exercise you're doing, light, heavy, medium.
Yep.
You want to like keep your heart rate in a particular zone for a particular length of time, right?
And there
increase
is
your-
real evidence behind that.
yes.
If you are working
there
out,
is evidence behind it.
if you're working out too hard for too long, that might hurt your fitness goals in that you will not be like your body will not get stronger the way you want, and you're causing different kinds of exercise. It also can lead to injury and such, but it's also tough.
By the way,
because
we're not medical experts, so we're only
Yeah.
trust us regarding technology. Do not trust us regarding anything medicine or health related
Yep.
whatsoever.
I'm not a professional runner, but I am an accomplished runner who has talked to a lot of experts. I take it serious. Like I've run the New York Marathon in like 4-ish hours. Like I run a half marathon almost every weekend. I've been doing this for a very long time. But there's a running scale. What is it, the RPI scale? But there's a scale you can use where instead of looking at your heart rate, you want to qualitatively judge how hard does this activity feel right now? Like, could I say a few sentences while doing this? Can I not talk while doing this? Could I give a Shakespearean soliloquy while I'm doing this? Am I pushing myself so hard that I could not say a single word and I'm breathing at my maximum rate? Keep thinking about that number is a way more helpful measure than heart rate, because heart rate requires some significant bodies of data to even be able to interpret effectively. And it's very easy to make wrong interpretations, especially if you're using the quality of data from home fitness equipment without a professional advising you.
Yep. So why do I track the heart rate live while I'm biking with my bike computer and why do I log it even though I'm not mega fitnessy and I don't give a shit about any of that, right? For me, there's two reasons personally, right? Reason number one is I know that my max heart rate is like 180, 190 area, right?
That's not bad.
And
That's not bad.
That's not bad. Okay.
For someone our age, that's pretty good.
Oh, okay. Because my Apple Health says my VO2 max is like garbage.
Well,
so I don't
VO2
know,
max is a very different thing.
Yeah, but anyway, I know that my heart rate's in the 180, 190 area, right? And basically, my rule is like, hey, don't huff and puff, especially if I'm out in the woods. It's like I got to make it home, right? And so if every time I feel right, like maybe I'm huffing and puffing a little bit, I take a look, and if it says like 180 something, I'm like, oh, I got to chill. I got to take a little break, right? We can't be, we're out here huffing and puffing too much.
So
right?
thus, one of the first use cases to react to your body with more data than just winging it during an activity for your own health and comfort. That's a great use of this technology.
Yep, because otherwise it would just be like, you sort of based on your feelings, and we know feelings are not reliable, right? That's if we thought feelings were reliable, we believe in fake medicine, right? And the second reason is because, what I can do is, let's say I go on a bike ride, right? And then I'm going to go on it again, and then I can look at the graph from each time, right? And if the heart rate is lower on the same bike ride, right? That means I've had some kind of gain. Don't care how much of it, right? And I can use that to evaluate, right? Where am I going to go? How far am I going to go? How far do I think I can make it? Oh, I made it that far that time. And, the most recently I've done better than that. I can go this far probably and be home by, right? and I can use it to decide where I'm going to ride, when I'm going to ride, etc. And so it's right. If you're not making decisions with the numbers, you're not ever looking at them. Why are you collecting them?
Exactly. So how I use heart rate measure to give you a contrast, because this is a very different way to use it. Biking, whatever, I don't even track it because I can bike an unlimited distance at a steady pace, and I use the RPE scale solely. But running, my max heart rate is around 210, but my max sustainable heart rate, meaning I can basically go an unlimited distance, like I can maintain a heart rate of about 186 indefinitely. Like that's the zone I just always operate in when I'm doing big activities. So I'll run, and after the fact, I'm looking at the stats to see, was my heart rate consistent over the run? When I paused or stopped for whatever reason, how quickly did my heart rate return to baseline? Because that is a very specific measure of conditioning, and my goal is to maintain, ideally increase, but as I'm in my 40s, increase is going to be tough. I'm focused on maintain my cardiovascular conditioning, because I want to continue to run well into my very old age. And in your 40s, it is very hard to make gains in these things, but it is much easier to maintain. So if I see that I'm losing ground, I increase my training regime. If I see that I'm gaining ground, then I try to figure out what's going on, because how's my 43-year-old body like doing something special? But like, if you look, I actually pulled up one of my recent run. I just picked a random one. You can see this was a really light run. I only ran like 7 miles, and my heart rate basically sits at about 176 the entire time, not going up or down appreciably until the very end when I stop. Uphill, downhill, nothing changes it.
Yeah, but in terms of technology, right, there's a few different methods, and they all, for whatever you're doing, if you're not a professional athlete, any of the methods, any of the devices, the new AirPods, the Apple Watches, the Fitbits, whatever, I guess the Android watches that are too big.
Like, they're all good enough. It's the same reason
the
as
thing you strap around your body, right?
What do you always say?
Be just fine.
What's the best bicycle to own? Whichever one you'll ride.
Right.
Whichever one you got, whichever one you will ride. So get whatever technology to track your stuff. All the heart rate monitors are broadly equivalent unless you're getting into very specialized nonsense, and they're accurate enough for anything you're going to use them for.
Yep. All right. So another technology that me personally, I'm actually not a huge fan of, but I think it's probably also the most common fitness technology is the pedometer.
I have never used a pedometer.
People out there just counting their steps. Like, I got to get my steps in today, and I'm like, nah, I don't give a shit.
Well, when we live in New York, we walk miles. I walk up 10 to 14 full flights of stairs every day just on my commute.
Yeah. I think it could be helpful psychologically for people who, they're in a car place, right? And if they feel they need to get in their steps every day, or Pokemon Go, or whatever it is that they're, or I guess, even at Penny Arcade, Gabe said he was making like a Lookouts game, which is basically just a graphic novel where you turn the pages by walking.
Yeah.
Right? With a pedometer, which, it's like, if that motivates someone to go outside, that's a good thing. But I don't personally have like any value in seeing how many steps did I take today. Did I complete the ring on my Apple Watch? I just turned all that shit off.
And that's where there's another problem where, and I just read an article about this, I think in the Atlantic. It was talking about how people are starting to quibble a lot about how many steps do you need to get in. And it's very much like, how many glasses of water do you need to drink? And the answer is, everybody's different. So people sometimes will use a technology like that to get a false sense of security of, I get 10,000 steps in every day. I am clearly physically fit. And that is not necessarily true. But at the same time, Pokemon Go or pedometer, whatever, if you weren't walking around and you walk around more because you're tracking that stat, that's a win. Like, great. Whatever gets you to do it, whatever helps.
Right. But technologically, pedometers themselves, really boring.
Yep.
They're as accurate as they are, which is not perfectly, but also not too bad. Obviously you can just shake one to make the number go up, right? And that's cheating. But I wouldn't recommend like pretty much anyone just buying a standalone one. That's kind of unnecessary, right?
No,
It's
get like a used Apple Watch or like a crapo like used Fitbit or something. That'll work fine.
yeah, it's not one where you had to buy its own.
Yeah, for all
thing.
my crazy activity, my watch, I don't even have internet in it. It's just I just do it all offline. Like I don't care. But
I just realized there's probably way too many. If we keep going data point by data point, we'll be here forever. There's way more than I realized before we started the show.
Maybe I think there's some more follow-ups then. Maybe let's hold off on anything related to the GPS itself.
Yeah. I think the point, I guess the overall point is that, you're going to have some sort of, main device that is like your data collection thing, right? And then there's the ANT, if you don't know about ANT Plus, it's like this low profile personal networking thing that allows sensors to communicate. So for example, like with biking, I have a bike computer, and then I've got a little thing on my wheel that checks the basically miles per hour because it does math, and it knows how many times the wheel rotates, and it knows the circumference of the wheel. And there's also a thing on my pedal, and it knows that it's on my pedal, and it knows the length of the crank, so it knows the RPMs I'm pedaling with.
Actually, that's something I lack that I could use to be a better biker.
Yeah, I use that.
My cadence discipline is not great.
Yeah, about cadence matters less than you would think, according to studies. Like, it's like, what's the best cadence, fast or slow? And it's like the correct answer is comfortable for you. That's the best cadence, right? But if you want to, I have it anyway because I want to, keep the at least a steady cadence. Or I can see what my cadence is, right? It's very useful while biking, but those communicate with ANT Plus to the bike computer, so I can see it on the bike computer, and the bike computer records it. And so you'll see a lot of, if you go looking for devices other than just like Apple Watch or something, or Garmin or whatever, you'll see like either supports ANT Plus or something, and that means that those devices can talk to each other and collect and communicate the data, because you're going to have some devices that are just like really dumb sensors, right? The heart rate monitor is strapped around my chest. It's a thing with a really simple device with a coin cell battery, and it just does a little broadcast, and the bike computer is doing all the actual work, right?
But that does lead to one final thing around that kind of tech. The bike computer, if you are serious, if there's one hobby you do that is sport related that is serious, the specialized equipment around that specific sport often exists for a reason. It may not be helpful to you, but you should at least learn about the specialized tech people are using. Like, I don't use a bike computer, even though I do a lot of biking, but I can see the benefits of it, and like you really should understand like what a bike computer is, because it does more than you think, and they're very useful.
You can get a really simple bike computer. You don't need to get the fancy GPS ones. You can get one where you put like a magnet on your spoke.
That's what I had as a kid. Like when I was biking long distances as a kid, like that's what I had.
Yeah, and you know what? That's going to be fine for almost everybody, right? But I have the GPS one because I'm going far, and I don't want to get lost, and I don't want to have to use my phone on my handlebars like a lot of people do. People do that. You can do that too. But I like to keep my phone like off in low power mode, so I know I have the battery, and I can use the bike computer that's better at it and is more specialized.
So similarly, a friend of ours got this. I don't use this. I've considered it, but I get instruction instead when I need help skiing because I am an advanced skier. But
do they have ski computers?
Yes, they are an emerging technology, and the ones that exist now, you basically stick things to your boots, and they're keeping track of things like G-forces, the angle left and right of each one of your feet, so you can see your edge angle against the snow. Those stats are actually like seeing those numbers is really valuable in learning core techniques if you did not somehow learn this from an expert. But the cool thing they do, and our friend George, he was trying this out, you can have it talk to you while you're going. Like you do a turn, and then it's like, that was a good one. And then you turn again, it's like, that was a bad one. And you're getting feedback while you're doing the activity. This isn't about fitness.
Like the golf coach.
Exactly. But it's doing it live while you're on the mountain in an active full run. And then at the end, you get the report. And all I'm saying is the specialized equipment for a particular physical activity is often specialized for a reason. And if that is your activity, it is worth understanding what that tech can do.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know very much about this activity, but as far as I'm aware, the activity with the most technology, the athletic activity that I can think of that has the most technology related to it, and perhaps one of the first to use this kind of technology is scuba diving. Right?
100%.
The dive watch is like what all this came from, right?
Yep. I mean, a dive computer is like, imagine a bike computer, but it tells you how to not die, and it warns you if you might die.
Yeah. And so I don't know much about it, but that's just like the first example that always comes to mind is like the most technologized thing.
So yeah, we've gone on long, so I think this one's a pretty easy moral, and I think we're going to talk about a few adjacent topics in future episodes because we're desperate for Mondays.
If you do any sport, athletic activity of some kind, and there is a specialized tools and computers for it, and devices, sensors, that we don't know about because we don't do those things. We're just running and biking. Let us know about those.
Yeah. And
another one is the swimmers. They have the thing in their goggles, right, that shows them the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There, 1 hour and 6 minutes.
Okay.
Well, I guess I started to record a little early. It's a little less than that. So it's a normal episode. All right. Just ordered some taco men because we're lazy.